Beloved chosen one, do you feel it? That stirring deep within your soul, urging you to pay attention to this very moment? It's no coincidence that you've been led here today. Out of all the things you could be doing right now, you are here, reading these words, and that is nothing short of divine alignment. What if this is more than just a message? What if this is God's way of inviting you into a new season of your life, one marked by transformation, renewal, and purpose? Before we step deeper into this life-changing revelation, take a moment to declare your readiness by commenting 999 below. This act is not just symbolic. It's a declaration of your faith and your willingness to embrace the calling God has placed upon you. To those who have blessed this mission through your support and super thanks, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude. Your generosity is a testament to your faith and has made it possible to share these messages of hope and healing with so many. Thank you for being a vital part of this journey and for walking alongside us in God's light. Now, reflect on this. Have you felt the weight of your old self, the doubts, fears, and regrets holding you back? Do you sense the tension between who you were and who God is calling you to become? Today, you are invited to an extraordinary moment, a funeral, not of sorrow, but of celebration. It's time to say goodbye to the version of yourself that no longer serves your purpose. But what comes next? What does God have in store for you when you lay down your past and embrace the new creation He has designed you to be? Stay with me, because the answer lies ahead, and it holds the power to transform everything. Let's step forward together into this journey of renewal, trusting that God's plan for you is greater than anything you could imagine. Are you ready to let go of the old and step boldly into the new? Let's begin. God's chosen one, this is for you. A funeral for your old self awaits. Embrace the new you today. One, acknowledging the weight of your past. Chosen. 1. Pause for a moment and truly reflect on the journey that has brought you here. This is not just any moment, it's a sacred threshold, a line between who you have been and who you are becoming. Can you feel it? It's the same quiet but powerful moment Moses faced at the burning bush, when God called him by name and said, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." Exodus 3:5. But before you take the step forward, it's time to honor the version of yourself that carried you this far. That version of you bore the weight of every heartbreak, every setback, and every silent doubt that echoed in your mind. It didn't merely survive, it fought. Think of Joseph, sold into slavery by his brothers, abandoned in a foreign land, and imprisoned unjustly. Yet through all of that, Joseph endured because God had a greater purpose. The Lord was with Joseph, and he prospered. Genesis 39:2. Do you realize how extraordinary that is? Let that truth sink in. Joseph's hardships were not wasted, neither are yours. Every moment, every tear has shaped you into the warrior you are today. You see, the person you were during those times was not weak. It was a warrior, resilient, determined, and full of a strength that you may not have even realized you possessed. Remember David, a young shepherd boy who stood before Goliath, armed only with a sling and his unshakable faith. His courage didn't come from his size or strength, but from knowing the battle is the Lord's. 1 Samuel 17:47. Think back to the darkest moments, the nights when tears fell so freely you thought they'd never stop, the mornings when getting out of bed felt like lifting a mountain, the days when you questioned if you had the strength to keep going. Can you see it now? You were never alone. Just as God promised Joshua before he entered the unknown, he whispers to you, "Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Joshua 1:9. And yet, you did keep going. That version of you carried the weight of your fears, your confusion, and your pain, walking through fire so that the version of you today could rise. Ask yourself, what if all of it was leading you here? But now, dear one, the truth becomes clear. That version of you has fulfilled its purpose. Like Paul, who wrote, "Forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me." Philippians 3:13-14. You must understand that the weight you've been carrying was never meant to be yours forever. It did what it needed to do. It kept you alive, it kept you moving, and it held you together when everything around you felt like it was falling apart. But it is tired now. The burdens you've carried, expectations of others, wounds passed down through generations, and fears imposed by the world are like the yoke Jesus spoke of, heavy and crushing. And yet he invites you. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. Is it any wonder you felt heavy? Is it any wonder there were days you questioned if you could keep going? And yet you didn't stop. Somehow you found the courage to break the patterns, to choose healing when harm would have been easier, and to say, "It ends with me." Like Nehemiah rebuilding Jerusalem's walls amidst opposition, you stood firm and declared, "The joy of the Lord is your strength." Nehemiah 8:10. Do you understand the power of that choice? The weight of generational cycles, old habits, and limiting beliefs doesn't break itself. It takes someone strong enough, determined enough, chosen enough to carry the burden and say, "No more." That's you, beloved. But here's where the truth demands your attention. Holding on to who you were is holding you back from who you are meant to become. This isn't about rejecting your old self. On the contrary, it's about honoring it, recognizing that every doubt, every fear, and every tear served its purpose. Your old self protected you when the world felt harsh, just as God sheltered Elijah when he fled to the cave, exhausted and afraid. But then God's whisper came, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" 1 Kings 19:9. That same whisper comes to you now. What are you doing here? Why do you cling to the old when I am making all things new? Your old self got you here, but it cannot go with you into the next chapter of your life. The habits that once comforted you, the patterns that once gave you a sense of safety, they were necessary for a time, but now they are chains holding you back. Will you trust God to lead you into what's next? Will you dare to lay down the burdens and step forward, much like Lazarus rising from his tomb when Jesus called, "Lazarus, come forth." John 11:43. It's like the Israelites in the wilderness. After years of bondage, God led them out of Egypt, but even then, many longed for the familiarity of their captivity. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. They said in Numbers 11:5. Isn't that human nature? We cling to what feels familiar, even when it no longer serves us. But do you see the irony? They weren't free in Egypt, they were slaves, and yet their old comfort threatened to hold them back from the freedom God had prepared for them. Isn't that where you are right now? Your old self, the one who fought so hard to keep you alive, is not meant to come with you into the new land that God has set before you. Chosen one, this is your moment to let go. Not in anger, not in rejection, but in love. Honor the old you for its resilience, its fight, and its unyielding determination. It carried you when you felt broken. It shielded you when the storms raged too fiercely. It pushed you forward when you doubted your very existence. But now it's time to lay it to rest. Not because it wasn't enough, but because its purpose has been fulfilled. Do you feel that pull in your spirit, that stirring deep within? That's not fear, it's freedom calling your name. God says in Isaiah 43:19, "See, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" That new thing is your transformation, and it begins the moment you choose to release the weight of the past. The doubts that once kept you safe, the fears that once protected you, they no longer have a place here. What once served you is now holding you back. So, as you stand at the threshold of this new chapter, ask yourself this: are you ready to let go? Are you ready to trust that what lies ahead is greater than anything you're leaving behind? This is not the end. This is a beginning, a resurrection into the fullness of who you were always meant to be. Take a deep breath, chosen one, and say it aloud if you need to. I release my old self with love and gratitude. I honor the battles I've fought, and I step forward into the light of who I am becoming. This is your moment to shed the heaviness, to release the chains, and to embrace the freedom that is calling you. Your past has not defined you. It has prepared you. Now, rise up and walk into the fullness of your purpose. The old you did not fail. It succeeded in carrying you here. And here, chosen one, is where everything changes. 2. Letting go of old identities. Chosen one, today is the day you release the identities that no longer serve you. Do you feel it? That quiet voice deep inside you calling for freedom, whispering that it's time to lay those roles to rest. This voice is like God's gentle invitation to the Israelites in Isaiah. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Isaiah 43:18-19. That whisper in your soul is God's way of telling you, it's time. These identities were not accidents. They were shaped by everything you've experienced, your struggles, your relationships, your survival. Maybe you've been the overachiever, tirelessly proving your worth through accomplishments, hoping each success would finally be enough. This reminds me of Martha, who was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made, while her sister Mary sat at Jesus' feet. Jesus gently said to Martha, "You are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one." Luke 10:41-42. Have you been so busy striving that you forgot the peace found in simply being? Or perhaps you wore the mask of the caretaker, pouring endlessly into others while your own needs went unheard. Like the Samaritan woman at the well, who had poured herself out into broken relationships, you may feel empty. Yet Jesus offers her living water, saying, "Whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." John 4:14. Isn't it time you allowed God to pour into you, to let Him meet the needs you've long neglected? You may even have been the strong one, unyielding and unwavering, the pillar who pushed through pain because there was no room to be vulnerable. Do you remember Jesus weeping at Lazarus' tomb? John 11:35. Even the Son of God allowed Himself to be vulnerable, to feel deeply and to share His tears. Being strong does not mean denying your humanity. God reminds us in 2 Corinthians chapter 12:9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." You do not have to carry this alone anymore. But here's the truth. These identities, as real as they felt, were not who you are. They were armor, roles you created to shield your tender soul from the harshness of a world that rarely felt kind or forgiving. Think of David, who tried on Saul's heavy armor before facing Goliath. He removed it, realizing that it did not fit. "I cannot go in these," David said, 1 Samuel 17:39. The armor felt real, protective even, but it was never meant for him. Just like the roles you've worn, they served you for a time, but were never your true form. They gave you structure in chaos, protection in storms, and a sense of control when everything felt unpredictable. And for a time, they served you. Beloved, these roles were scaffolding, holding you up as you built yourself stronger. Like the wilderness was for the Israelites, a season of shaping, refining, and preparing. They were necessary, but they were never your home. To everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. Ecclesiastes 3:1. Can you see that now? These roles were necessary for a season, but they are not your final form. Do you remember the story of David before he became king? When David faced Goliath, King Saul offered him heavy armor to protect him in battle. But David realized the armor didn't fit him. It was not made for him. So he took it off. He chose to stand in his truth, armed only with a sling, 5 stones, and faith in God. 1 Samuel 17:38-40. What armor are you still wearing that was never meant for you? The roles you've carried, overachiever, caretaker, the strong one, might feel like armor, but are they truly yours? Or are they weights keeping you from stepping fully into who you were created to be? Beneath every role, beneath every mask, there is a deeper, purer version of you waiting to be seen. The you that existed before the world told you who to be. The you who doesn't have to prove or perform to be worthy of love. That version of you is enough as it is, whole, free, and radiant. But to find that self, you must have the courage to let go of the familiar. I know it's not easy. These roles, even when they weighed you down, gave you comfort because they were predictable. They made you feel safe. So now, as you prepare to lay them down, you might ask yourself, if I'm not the achiever, the caretaker, or the strong one, who am I? The answer, chosen one, is liberating. You are free. You are free to become whoever God has called you to be. You are free to explore a life that aligns with your soul, not the expectations of others. Imagine standing before the mirror, not seeing roles or masks, but your true self staring back at you, unburdened, unencumbered, and full of light. How does that feel? Letting go of these old identities is not an act of rejection, it's an act of evolution. It's not forgetting where you've come from, but honoring the roles that once served you. Thank the overachiever who taught you the value of hard work. Thank the caretaker who showed you the beauty of compassion and love. Thank the strong one who carried you through the darkest storms. These parts of you were never failures. They were gifts, tools you used to survive. But survival was never meant to be your final destination. God didn't create you just to survive. He created you to thrive. Think about the story of Lazarus. When Jesus called him out of the tomb, Lazarus was alive, but he was still wrapped in grave clothes. Jesus said, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." John 11:44. The grave clothes represented what was dead, what no longer belonged to him. Are you still wearing the grave clothes of old identities? Are you still wrapped in what no longer fits? The truth is, chosen one, it's time to let them go. Yes, there will be discomfort. Letting go of the familiar often feels like shedding a second skin. But what feels uncertain today is making space for something greater. Can you feel that possibility? It's the promise of freedom, of stepping into your purpose, of living a life no longer limited by what others expect of you. This is not loss, it's rebirth. Like a butterfly emerging from its cocoon, you are shedding the old to reveal the beauty that was always waiting to emerge. So now, I invite you to take a deep breath. Picture yourself laying these identities down, one by one, like heavy bags you've carried for far too long. The weight that kept you tethered is no longer yours to hold. And as you set them aside, feel the lightness, the relief, the space that opens up in your spirit. This is where the magic begins. This is where you step into the fullness of who you are. Chosen one, you are not static. You are not bound to who you were. You are ever changing, ever growing, and ever becoming. Embrace this transformation with open arms. It is okay not to have it all figured out. God does not require you to know the entire path. He only asks you to take the next step. Trust that as you let go of who you were, you are stepping closer to who you were always meant to be. You're not losing yourself. You're finding yourself. You're reclaiming the parts of you that the world tried to bury, and you're rising into the limitless, radiant being you were created to be. So let go, chosen one, and let your true light shine. This is your moment, and it's only the beginning. 3. The funeral for your old self. This is it, my beloved, the moment you say goodbye to your old self. But let me remind you, this is not a moment of grief or regret. This is a sacred ceremony of love, of release and of celebration. Can you see it? This is like when the Israelites crossed the Jordan River into the Promised Land. Joshua 3:17. They left behind the wilderness that shaped them, but they could not carry its weight into their future. This moment is not a mourning. It is a sacred honoring. Imagine this as a gathering not to mourn, but to honor. To honor every version of you that existed before today, every fight it endured, and every step it took to bring you here, to this divine threshold of transformation. Just as Paul wrote, "I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith." 2 Timothy 4:7. Take a deep breath and picture this. You're standing at a crossroads. Behind you lies the path you have traveled, familiar yet heavy with the weight of pain, struggle, and survival. That path has shaped you, molded you, and refined you, much like gold is refined by fire. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold, Job said. Job 23:10. Can you feel it? The pull toward something greater, toward freedom, hope, and the purpose you have always longed for. Think of Abraham standing with Isaac on Mount Moriah, trusting God when all seemed uncertain. God's voice echoes, "Now, do not lay a hand on the boy. Now I know that you fear God." Genesis 22:12. This is your Mount Moriah, your moment of trust, surrender, and transformation. But before you take that first step, you must say goodbye to the self that carried you here. The version of you that you're laying to rest wasn't weak. Oh no, it was anything but. That version of you was a warrior, a protector, a fighter. It weathered storms that could have destroyed others, much like Noah, who endured ridicule, isolation, and a relentless storm, but obeyed God's call to build the ark. Genesis 6:14-22. It stood tall when life tried to knock it down. Can you see that now? Think back for a moment. Remember the heartbreaks that shattered your spirit, the sacrifices that felt like they took pieces of your soul, and the nights you whispered, "God, I don't know if I can go on." You're not alone in those moments. Jesus himself, in the Garden of Gethsemane, cried out, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Yet not as I will, but as you will." Matthew 26:38-39. If even the Savior endured such nights, how much more can you trust that your pain has purpose? Yet you did. That old self was there for you through it all. It carried you when your legs felt like they would give way. It shielded you from a world that sometimes felt too harsh to bear. That self was a hero, much like Ruth, who walked through loss and uncertainty but said, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay." Ruth 1:16. Your old self said, "I will endure, I will fight, I will not quit." But now, beloved, the time has come. Like Lazarus stepping out of his tomb at Jesus' call, "Lazarus, come forth." John 11:43. You are being called into life, into freedom. Can you feel the weight beginning to lift? The old self did what it was meant to do. It carried you here, but it cannot go with you into what comes next. But now, beloved, it's time to let it rest. Just as a seed must break apart to make way for new life, the old self must be released to make space for the new. Unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. John 12:24. Do you see? This is not the end, it is the beginning of something beautiful. This moment, this funeral, is a sacred turning point. I want you to imagine standing in a quiet, holy place, a space that exists within your soul. In front of you lies a reflection of the self you are saying goodbye to. See it clearly. See the strength it held, the burdens it carried, and the pain it endured. Now imagine kneeling before it, placing your hand on your heart and whispering, "Thank you, you did your job. You carried me when I didn't know if I could carry myself. You gave me strength when I had nothing left, and now I release you with love." It may not be easy. Saying goodbye to a part of yourself, even one that no longer serves you, can feel like shedding a second skin. After all, these old layers, the roles, the beliefs, the survival instincts, have been with you for so long they feel like home. But I want you to ask yourself, is this really the home God intended for me, or is there something greater waiting for me on the other side? Do you remember when Jesus called Lazarus out of the tomb? Lazarus came out alive, but still wrapped in the grave clothes of his past. Jesus said, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." John 11:44. Beloved, this is your moment to take off the grave clothes. You are alive, you are free, and you are no longer bound by what once held you. The layers of guilt, fear, and pain, they don't belong to you anymore. Picture yourself now placing all of those old layers, those identities, those beliefs, into a beautiful box. Wrap it with care, knowing it is not being buried to be forgotten, but planted as the fertile soil from which your future will grow. Can you feel that release? The lightness that comes as you lay it down, as you let it rest? Yes, there will be emotions, sadness, relief, maybe even fear. That's okay. Growth requires you to step into the unknown. But know this, you are not losing anything. You are gaining everything. You are creating space for joy, for purpose, for the version of yourself that God has been waiting to reveal to you. This is not rejection of your past, but integration, taking the strength, wisdom, and lessons it gave you while releasing the weight of its limitations. The Apostle Paul said it best: "Forget what is behind and strain toward what is ahead. I press on toward the goal, to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus." Philippians 3:13-14. Can you feel the promise in those words? God has something ahead for you that far outweighs anything you are leaving behind. So as you stand here at this sacred moment of release, take a deep breath and feel the shift within you. Let the tears flow if they must. Let the old you rest with reverence and gratitude, for it brought you here. And as you say goodbye, turn toward the path ahead with open arms, for a new version of you is being born. A version that is freer, bolder, and more aligned with your truth than ever before. This is your resurrection, beloved. This is your rebirth. And you do not walk this path alone. The God who brought you this far will carry you forward. The universe is cheering for you, guiding you, celebrating every courageous step you take. So rise, chosen one. The funeral for your old self is not an end. It is a beginning. Say goodbye with love and step forward into the light of who you are becoming. For you are ready, you are worthy, and the best is yet to come. 4. Embracing the void. Chosen one, now that you've laid your old self to rest, what remains before you is the void, a vast, still space that holds both uncertainty and potential. For many, the void feels unsettling. It is uncharted territory, a place where everything familiar has been stripped away. And yet, this very space is sacred. It is not emptiness, but fullness waiting to be revealed. It is where you pause, reflect, and consciously decide who you will become. Do you feel the weight of this opportunity? This is where your transformation begins. The void can feel like standing alone in the wilderness, much like when Jesus was led into the desert to fast for 40 days and nights, Matthew 4:1-11. The wilderness was not punishment, it was preparation. In that quiet stillness, he was tempted, tested, and refined. Have you ever wondered why the wilderness was necessary? It stripped away distractions, forcing him to confront himself, his calling, and the strength that lay within. That is the purpose of the void in your life too. It is not here to harm you, but to refine you, to reveal the truth of who you are and prepare you for what comes next. At first, the void may feel like you've lost your anchor. You've stepped away from roles, habits, and patterns that once defined you, and now there's only stillness. It's tempting to look back, to cling to the familiar, even when you know it no longer serves you. Isn't that what the Israelites did when they left Egypt? In their discomfort, they longed for the chains of slavery because freedom felt uncertain. Exodus 16:3. But, beloved, God did not free them to return to their chains, and He has not brought you this far to let you turn back now. The question before you is this: do you trust that the unknown holds something greater for you? This void is not a curse, it is a gift. It is like the darkness before creation, when the Spirit of God hovered over the waters, ready to bring forth light and life. Genesis 1:2-3. Do you see the parallel? The Spirit is hovering over this space in your life too. The void is the canvas where God will paint the next chapter of your story. It is the fertile ground where the seeds of your dreams will take root and grow. What would you create if you truly believed that anything was possible? Take a moment to ask yourself, what dreams have you buried because you thought they were too big, too unrealistic, or too distant? What kind of life sets your soul on fire? If you could release all fear and limitation, who would you become? These are the questions the void invites you to explore. For so long, life may have felt like something that happened to you. You reacted, you survived, you pushed forward. But now, in this sacred stillness, you are being given a rare and precious gift, the freedom to choose. This is your moment to become the architect of your life, to consciously shape a reality aligned with your highest truth. Think of Noah as he stood in the ark, surrounded by the endless floodwaters. For days, he could see nothing but the vast expanse of water, a void, an unknown. It may have felt like God had forgotten him. But in that space of waiting, something new was being birthed. When the waters receded, Noah stepped onto dry land, and God made a covenant with him, a promise of new beginnings and abundance. Genesis 9:8-17. Chosen one, the void is your floodwaters. It is washing away what no longer belongs so that new life can emerge. But like Noah, you must trust the process, even when you cannot see the shore. Growth happens in the unseen, beneath the surface, in the darkness of the soil where seeds prepare to break forth. Can you trust that even in this quiet stillness, God is moving on your behalf? Can you trust that transformation is happening in ways you cannot yet see? Yes, the void will challenge you. It will test your faith and your patience. There will be moments when you feel stuck, when you wonder if you're making progress at all. But remember this: God does His greatest work in the stillness. When Elijah fled to the wilderness in despair, hoping to hear God's voice in the earthquake, fire, or wind, he discovered that the voice of God came not in noise, but in a gentle whisper. 1 Kings 19:11-12. In the same way, God's voice will meet you in the quiet of this void. Are you listening for it? This is not a time to rush. The void requires patience. It invites you to slow down, to be still, and to reconnect with your essence, the part of you that is unchanging, pure, and eternal. The world may try to rush you back into doing, back into the roles and patterns you've outgrown, but resist the temptation to fill this space too quickly. Instead, let yourself dream, explore, and be. Imagine yourself as an artist standing in an empty studio. Before you lies a blank canvas, brushes in hand, and an infinite palette of colors. What will you create? This is your masterpiece. This is your life. You're no longer bound by the expectations, doubts, or limitations of your past. You're free to paint the picture you've always dreamed of, a life of joy, peace, and alignment. Yes, there will be fear. Yes, there will be moments of uncertainty, but do not let that stop you. When doubt rises, speak to it. I trust the process. I trust myself. And I trust that God is leading me where I need to go, because He is. The void, beloved, is not empty. It is full of potential, full of life waiting to be created. It is here to remind you that you are not lost. You are being prepared. Every moment spent in this space is shaping you, strengthening you, and readying you for the extraordinary life that awaits you. So, embrace this void with courage. Let it refine you. Let it inspire you. Let it teach you to trust the stillness, to dream bigger, and to become the person God has always called you to be. Just as Noah found land, just as the Israelites found the promised land, just as Jesus emerged from the wilderness ready for His ministry, you too will emerge from this void transformed. This is not the end, chosen one. This is the beginning. You are not stuck. You are becoming. And what you are becoming is nothing short of magnificent. 5. Stepping into your light. Chosen one, take a deep breath. Feel it. The moment you've been preparing for is finally here. After all the shedding, the releasing, the painful letting go, you are standing at the threshold of something extraordinary. This is your time to step fully into your light. The shadows of doubt, fear, and limitation have fallen away. And now, you are ready to embrace the radiance of who you truly are. Can you feel it? That stirring in your soul, that quiet voice whispering, "You were made for this." For so long, you may have lived in the background, shrinking yourself to fit spaces that could not hold your brilliance. You dimmed your light, either because you were afraid of what others might say, or because the world taught you that standing out was dangerous. Isn't that what happened to Moses? He doubted himself when God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. He said, "Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" Exodus 3-11. But God replied, "I will be with you." Beloved, like Moses, you are not stepping into your light alone. You are walking forward with divine guidance and purpose, chosen to bring something unique to the world. It's time to own this truth. Your light was never meant to be hidden. Jesus Himself taught us, "You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house." Matthew 5:14-16. The world needs your light, your gifts, your wisdom, your presence, and this is not the time to hide. It is the time to shine unapologetically, without shrinking or doubting your worth. But let's pause for a moment. What does stepping into your light really mean? It means embracing every part of yourself, the beauty and the scars, the triumphs and the wounds. It means accepting that you were created intentionally with divine care for a purpose that no one else can fulfill. Do you see that now? You are not a mistake. You are not small. You are chosen. Stepping into your light takes courage. You will be called to stand tall in spaces that once felt too big for you. You will face moments where others don't understand your growth or your truth. That's okay. Your light is not for everyone, and you are not here to fit into their expectations. Remember David. When Samuel anointed him as king, his brothers didn't see his worth. To them, he was just a shepherd boy. But God said, "The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." 1 Samuel 16:7. Like David, your light is a reflection of your heart, your authenticity, your courage, your willingness to rise. It is not defined by others' opinions or their inability to see your value. Are you ready to step forward, regardless of who approves or understands? Chosen one, stepping into your light is more than a personal victory. It is a calling. Your light is not just for you, it is for the world. Like a lighthouse standing on a dark and stormy shore, your brilliance guides others. When you shine, you give others permission to do the same. Your courage becomes their inspiration. Your truth becomes a spark that ignites theirs. The Apostle Paul reminds us, "For God, who said, 'Let light shine out of darkness,' made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory." 2 Corinthians chapter 4:6. When you step into your light, you are reflecting the divine, and that light changes everything it touches. So, are you ready to stop dimming yourself? Are you ready to release the old stories that told you that you weren't good enough, smart enough, or worthy enough to shine? Those stories were lies. The truth is that you were born to be a vessel of light in this world, a beacon of hope, healing, and transformation. Stepping into your light doesn't mean the journey will be free of challenges. There will still be shadows, there will still be storms, but you are no longer afraid of them. You've learned that the light within you is stronger than any darkness you face. Do you remember when Jesus calmed the storm on the Sea of Galilee? The disciples were terrified, but Jesus stood and said, "Peace, be still," and the winds obeyed him. Mark 4:39. In the same way, when storms arise in your life, you now carry the power to say, "Peace, be still," and let your light shine through the chaos. Your light is resilient. It cannot be extinguished by fear, failure, or rejection. In fact, every challenge you overcome will only make it shine brighter. So, beloved, what does it look like for you to shine today? Maybe it means showing up in your work with passion and purpose. Maybe it means pursuing that dream you've been hiding in your heart. Maybe it means loving boldly, forgiving fully, or speaking your truth when it shakes your voice. Whatever it is, do it with the knowing that your light has power. This is the beginning of a new chapter. Chosen one, you are no longer waiting for permission to shine. You have given yourself that permission. Step forward boldly, knowing that the universe is cheering you on, that God is walking beside you, and that your light is making a difference in ways you cannot yet see. Remember this, your light is not fragile, it is a force. The world needs you, not a version of you that conforms, but the real, radiant, unapologetic you. Shine so brightly that even the stars pause to admire the brilliance of what you've become. This is your moment, your calling, your time. You've fought for this, you've prayed for this, and now it's here. Step into your light, chosen one, and let the world be transformed by the glow of your presence. The best is yet to come. 6. Building a life that aligns with your truth. Chosen one. Chosen one, you've done the impossible. You've shed the weight of your past, embraced the discomfort of the void, and stepped fully into your light. And now, the real journey begins. not a journey of endless struggle, but one of intentional creation. This is the chapter where you step into the role of the architect of your destiny and build a life that reflects the truth of who you are. Can you feel it? The freedom, the possibility, the sacred responsibility of this moment? It's the same feeling Abraham must have experienced when God told him, "I will bless you, and you will be a blessing." Genesis 12:2. Abraham didn't have the full picture, but he trusted. Now you, too, stand at a moment of divine trust, where your steps forward will create blessings, not just for yourself, but for generations to come. For so long, you may have lived a life built on someone else's blueprint. You chased dreams handed to you by others, dreams that never belonged to your soul. You played roles you didn't choose, walked paths that weren't yours, and measured your worth by the expectations of the world. Does this sound familiar? Think of David, a shepherd boy who was overlooked by his own family, yet chosen by God to be king. When others saw only a boy, God declared, "Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." 1 Samuel 16:7. Like David, you are no longer bound by the roles others placed on you. God has always seen you, your heart, your truth, and your purpose. But no more. That season is over. Now, you're creating a life that feels like home. A life aligned with your truth, your values, and your divine purpose. This is your sacred task, to build something so real, so authentic, that every detail reflects the light within you. Remember the words of Jesus. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. This life you're building isn't just for you. It is a beacon for others searching for their own path. This life you're building is not about striving. It's about aligning. It's about listening to your soul's voice, the voice that whispers what brings you joy, what nurtures your spirit, and what fulfills you at the deepest level. Do you remember Elijah on the mountain? God's voice didn't come in the wind, the earthquake, or the fire. It came in a gentle whisper, 1 Kings 19:12. That whisper has always been within you, guiding you. And this time, you will listen. Because now you know, when you live in alignment, everything begins to flow. Doors open effortlessly. Opportunities appear where before there were none. Relationships bloom and abundance finds its way to you. Think of Joseph, who endured betrayal and imprisonment, only to rise to power in Egypt. He told his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done." Genesis 50:20. Your journey, every hardship, every lesson, has prepared you for this moment of abundance and alignment. This isn't luck. It's the reward of living in harmony with who you were created to be. Do you remember the story of Nehemiah? He was tasked with rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, an enormous, daunting project. But Nehemiah approached the task with purpose, focus, and faith. He said, "The God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding." Nehemiah 2:20. And brick by brick, he built something that restored strength, safety, and hope to his people. Chosen one, you are like Nehemiah now. You are rebuilding the framework of your life, one conscious decision at a time. Every choice you make is a brick in the foundation of a future rooted in truth. So, let me ask you this. Does this life you're building reflect who you truly are? Pause and consider. Does this job, this relationship, this environment bring me closer to my soul's purpose? Do my actions honor the person I am becoming, or are they remnants of the old me? Am I building something that brings joy, peace, and fulfillment into my life? If the answer is not a resounding yes, it is time to let it go, because chosen ones do not compromise their truth for anyone or anything. You are not here to shrink yourself to fit into spaces that can't hold your light. You are here to build a life so aligned, so radiant, that it inspires others simply by existing. And let's talk about the relationships in your life, because they too are shifting. As you honor your truth, you will find that some people naturally fall away. That is not loss, it is alignment. When you live authentically, those who resonate with your light will be drawn to you. These are the connections that uplift, support, and inspire you. These are your soul family, the ones who see your worth, not because of what you can do for them, but because of who you are. In the same way, the opportunities coming to you now feel different, don't they? They don't feel forced. They fit perfectly, as though they were made for you, because they were. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Ephesians 2:10. The universe has been orchestrating these opportunities for you, waiting for you to step into alignment so that it could deliver them. This is not coincidence, this is divine timing. But alignment is not just about what's external. True alignment begins within. It's about waking up every day with peace in your heart, knowing that you are exactly where you're meant to be. It's about feeling expansive, alive, and purposeful. Not because you've reached some arbitrary goal, but because you're embodying your truth every single day. This life you're building is not about perfection, it's about presence. It's about showing up as your authentic self, unapologetically and fully. And yes, there will be challenges. Old patterns may try to resurface, and moments of doubt will arise. But now, you know better. You are stronger. You have the tools to recognize those patterns for what they are. Echoes of a past that no longer holds power over you. You've chosen to release them, and in doing so, you've created space for something greater. This is your time, chosen one, a time of transformation, expansion, and sacred creation. Like an artist at the canvas, every action you take is a brushstroke. Like a gardener planting seeds, every decision you make shapes what will grow in the future. The life you're building is not just for you, it's a beacon of possibility for others. By living in alignment, you inspire those around you to do the same. Your courage becomes a guide for others who are still searching for their truth. Can you see it now? The ripple effect of your choices? The way your light touches lives you may never even know. This is the power of a life lived authentically. So keep building, chosen one. Keep choosing yourself. With every step, you are creating a legacy, a life that reflects the highest version of who you are. And remember, you are not doing this alone. God is with you, guiding you, supporting you, and cheering you on. The universe is aligning every detail, every connection, and every opportunity to match the vibration of the truth you now embody. This is just the beginning. You are stepping into a life of limitless possibility, and as you continue to align, you'll find that the world around you begins to reflect the truth within you. The light you've embraced is transforming your reality, one conscious choice at a time. So, stand tall, beloved. Own the life you're creating. Let it be a reflection of your deepest joy, your highest purpose, and your divine essence. You're not just living, you're thriving. And the world will never be the same because of the light you dared to shine. Keep going, chosen one. This life you're building is a masterpiece, and the best is yet to come. 7. Walking boldly into the new you. Chosen one, the moment you've been preparing for has arrived. The transformation you once envisioned, the version of yourself you long to become, is no longer a distant dream. It is your reality. Look at yourself now. Can you feel it? The old layers of fear, doubt, and hesitation have fallen away, revealing the strength, wisdom, and light that were always within you. You are no longer becoming. You are. You stand here today as someone renewed, someone who has walked through fire and emerged refined. Do you remember the struggles you once thought would break you? The tears, the doubts, the nights you whispered, "God, I don't know how much more I can take." But here you are, proof that what was meant to destroy you only made you stronger. Like gold refined in the fire, your trials have shaped you into something extraordinary. 1 Peter 1:7. You are not defined by your struggles. You are defined by the courage it took to rise from them. Walking boldly into the new, you requires embracing every part of the journey that brought you here. The mistakes, the victories, the lessons, and the healing, they are all part of the foundation you stand on. Do not diminish any part of it, for nothing was wasted. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. Even the moments that felt like setbacks were setting you up for this very moment. Have you ever paused to consider that the very pain you endured might be preparing you for something extraordinary? This isn't just a new chapter, chosen one. It's a whole new book, and you are the author. You no longer wait for life to happen to you. You create with intention, with purpose, and with the clarity that comes from knowing who you are. What story will you write with this new beginning? Will it be one of fear and hesitation, or one of bold faith and courage? Every step you take is deliberate, every decision a reflection of the truth you've uncovered within yourself. And this is the truth. You are powerful beyond measure. You are worthy of every dream in your heart. You're capable of building a life beyond what you once thought possible. But walking boldly into this new version of yourself requires faith, the kind of faith that moves mountains, even when the path ahead is unclear. You've learned that clarity doesn't always come before action. It often comes through action. Can you trust God with the next step, even when you can't see the whole path? Remember Abraham, called by God to leave everything familiar and journey to a place he did not know. Genesis 12:1. He didn't wait for a detailed plan. He trusted God with each step. What if your first step of faith is all God needs to open the next door? Will you dare to take it? The new you no longer waits for perfect conditions. You take bold steps of faith, trusting that God is leading you exactly where you need to go. And when you walk boldly into your new self, you inspire others to believe in their own transformation. Do you realize the ripple effect of your courage? Who might be watching your journey right now, silently hoping for their own breakthrough because they see you rising? There are people watching, even if they never say it aloud, who are finding hope because of your example. Your light is giving them permission to believe that they too can rise from their struggles, shed their old selves, and embrace a life of purpose. What if your obedience to growth is the spark that ignites someone else's transformation? Chosen one, the new you is a leader, not necessarily in a position of authority, but in spirit. You lead by example. You lead by showing what's possible when someone chooses faith over fear, authenticity over conformity, and purpose over procrastination. Are you ready to embrace the role God has set before you? To become the lighthouse others look to when they feel lost? Your transformation becomes a lighthouse, illuminating the way for others who are still lost in their darkness. You are proof that change is possible. You are living evidence that growth is worth it. But to protect this new version of yourself, you must honor your boundaries. Not everyone will understand the new you, and that's okay. Some may question your growth. Others may resist it. Will you let their opinions hold you back, or will you keep building the life God called you to create? Like Nehemiah rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, you must stay focused on your mission. refusing to be distracted or discouraged by those who don't see your vision. I am carrying on a great project and cannot go down. Nehemiah 6:3. What are the distractions in your life that you must lay aside to honor this new version of yourself? You've worked too hard to allow anything or anyone to pull you back into the shadows. This new you thrives in alignment with abundance, purpose, and joy. You no longer settle for less than what you deserve. The limitations of the past have no power over you because you've learned to see challenges as opportunities. How would your life change if you embraced every challenge as a lesson and every closed door as God's redirection? Where others see walls, you see doors waiting to be opened. Where others see failure, you see lessons that refine you. You've cultivated a mindset that perseveres, a spirit that overcomes, and a heart that remains open to love, even after pain. So I ask you, are you ready to step fully into this new version of yourself? Will you trust that God has prepared you for this moment, for this purpose, for this season of your life? This new you thrives in alignment with abundance, purpose, and joy. You no longer settle for less than what you deserve. The limitations of the past have no power over you because you've learned to see challenges as opportunities. Where others see walls, you see doors waiting to be opened. Where others see failure, you see lessons that refine you. You've cultivated a mindset that perseveres, a spirit that overcomes, and a heart that remains open to love even after pain. As you walk boldly into this next chapter, know this: you are not called to be perfect. You are called to be authentic. God didn't design you to fit into anyone else's mold. He created you with a unique purpose, a unique light that no one else can replicate. Embrace that fully. Own your flaws, your strengths, your quirks, everything that makes you you. There is no greater freedom than showing up as your true self, unapologetically and without hesitation. So, chosen one, I ask you this: what will you do with this new version of yourself? How will you use this strength, this clarity, this light? This isn't the time to play small. It's the time to dream boldly, act courageously, and live fully. The universe is waiting to see what you create next. God is cheering you on, ready to bless every step you take in faith. This is not the end of your journey. This is just the beginning. The life you are stepping into is limitless. The possibilities before you are infinite. Every action you take now is a declaration of your worth, a reflection of your purpose, and an expression of the divine light within you. You are a creator, a visionary, a trailblazer. You're no longer hoping for change. You are the change. And as you walk boldly into this new version of yourself, remember, you are not alone. The God who brought you through the fire will continue to guide you. The same light that led you here will illuminate your path forward. So step boldly, chosen one. Live boldly. Shine so brightly that you inspire others to believe in their own light. This is your time. This is your moment. And what lies ahead for you is far greater than anything you leave behind. Now, chosen one, look back for a moment at where you started. Do you remember that version of yourself? The one who doubted their strength, who carried the weight of the past, and who thought transformation was for someone else? That version of you wasn't weak. That version of you was the foundation, the seed that made this new life possible. Honor them. Thank them. And now, turn your gaze forward, because your story is far from over. This is your time, chosen one. Step into it with faith, confidence, and the unshakable knowing that you are exactly where you're meant to be. Yes, the path ahead will have moments of uncertainty, moments that challenge you to rise even higher. But now, you have everything you need to face whatever comes your way. You have the strength that carried you through your darkest days. You have the wisdom that came from lessons once disguised as struggles. And you have a light within you that can illuminate any darkness. The world is waiting for you, not the version of you that conforms, hides, or shrinks, but the real you, the bold you, the brilliant you, the you that lives with purpose, walks with grace, and radiates authenticity. Let your light shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Matthew 5:16. Your light is not just for you. It is a gift to everyone you meet, a beacon that inspires others to believe in their own capacity for change, growth, and greatness. This journey is not the end. It is a beginning. The beginning of something extraordinary, something only you can create. You are not the same person who began this path, and that is a beautiful thing. You've grown, you've evolved, you've stepped into a version of yourself that is aligned, powerful, and full of light. To everyone who has traveled this path with me, thank you. Thank you for showing up for yourself. Thank you for having the courage to grow, the faith to trust the process, and the strength to keep going when it felt impossible. Thank you for letting me walk alongside you in this journey of transformation. You are a testament to what's possible when someone refuses to settle for less than they were created for. If this message has spoken to you, if it has touched your spirit and reminded you of your strength, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and leave a comment with, "I am ready to shine," or simply 777 as a declaration to the universe. Your story matters. Your voice matters. By sharing this light, you are extending the ripple of hope and inspiration to others who need it. Play this message on repeat whenever you need to be reminded of who you are and how far you've come. Let it sink into your spirit. Let it be the fire that keeps you moving forward. Whenever doubt whispers in your ear, come back to this. You are chosen. You are worthy. You are ready. My angel, this is not the end of your journey. It is just the beginning. The life before you is filled with infinite possibilities. Walk boldly into it, trusting yourself, trusting the process, and trusting that the universe is working in your favor. You are creating a future more beautiful than anything you could have imagined. Keep shining, chosen one. Keep growing. Keep rising. The best is yet to come, and I can't wait to see what you create, who you become, and how your light transforms the world around you. May God bless you abundantly as you walk this path. May you be surrounded by love, guided by wisdom, and strengthened by faith. May your days be filled with purpose, your heart be filled with peace, and your spirit be filled with joy.